Okay, this is the first lesson for part 2 of quadratic formula. We're going to solve quadratics by factoring. These are our goals. We're going to reverse FOIL, which you can remember from doing polynomials part 2. We're going to find the zeros. And then we're going to recognize and locate the zeros on the graph. We're not going to do so much graphing. We're just going to find the zeros. We're going to look at two different types here. If you look on page 572 in your textbook, we're going to look at equations that might look like this, that are already factored for us. We're going to look at equations that might look like this, and have to factor those, reverse FOIL, and we might have some that look like this. We're going to put those in standard form. Something I want you to remember, though, is the zero property. What happens when we multiply a number by 0? Okay, that's going to help us. Quick review. The one I want to look at is this one. This was just from our last part. X squared minus 4 equals 0. What are my solutions? Remember, we get x squared by itself, so x squared equals 4. The inverse of squaring is square root, so x equals positive or negative 2, because we look at the square roots of 4. It's helpful to remember our perfect squares. So what if we have this? X squared plus x equals 2. Okay, here we go. Remember the FOIL method? Oh, but this isn't in standard form. Ax plus ax squared plus bx plus c. Can I easily do that? Absolutely. I just need to bring the 2 over. So I would subtract 2 from both sides. So I end up with x squared plus x minus 2 equals 0. And now I need to do the reverse FOIL. I need to find factors that will fit into this. So I have x, like double bubbles, and an x. So I have x plus 2, x minus 1. Because I need to have a positive number but a negative product. Okay? And this has to equal 0. Remember the 0 property? If I multiply something by 0, what do I get? 0. So if either of these equals 0, then the whole thing is 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set each of these, x plus 2 and x minus 1, equal to 0, and solve for x. You might be able to do that mentally. What number plus 2 will give me 0? Negative 2. So if x is negative 2, it will be a 0. What would x minus 1 equal 0? Well, 1. Well, if x is 1, then the whole thing will be 0. Then you can go in and try it out if you want to. X squared, so 1 squared plus 1 minus 2. What's 1 plus 1? 1 squared is 1, so what's 1 plus 1? 2. Is 2 minus 2 0? Yes. Let's substitute negative 2 in there. Negative 2 squared plus negative 2 minus 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. 4 plus negative 2 minus 2. 0. Okay? That's one way we're going to look at it. What happens, though? So we need to factor. Sometimes the factor bubbles, or double bubbles, will already be given to us. Other times we'll need to factor first. Okay? This one's already in standard form. So let's do our double bubbles. So I have a product of 2 minus 4. Can that work? Okay, typo. X squared minus 3x plus 2. So we're going to have an x minus 2 and an x minus 1. So each of these equal to 0, you can figure out that x would equal what to make it 0. So if you need to write it out, x minus 2 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. Okay? X can be 2 or x can be 1. So we might already have our double bubbles. We might have to reverse FOIL to get our double bubbles. We might have to put it in standard form before we can reverse bubble and before we can get our double bubbles. That would be this last example here. So we need to add, we don't need too cooperative, we need to add 15 to both sides. So x squared plus 8x plus 15. Double bubbles. Product of 15, sum of 8, x plus 5, x plus 3. Double bubbles equal to 0, x plus 5 equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0. So x is either going to be negative 5 or x is going to be negative 3. That's just a game we don't have time for. There's a few more if you'd like to do them on your own. And that's just where you go. So you can try those two on your own and show me for double check.